Imagine waking up tomorrow to find that your company's top software engineer, the one who just wrote 40% of your code base last night, has suddenly been legally lobotomized by the United States government.
And the terrifying part is this isn't some hypothetical future scenario. We're talking about a complete forced rollback of capabilities while that engineer is actively connected to your production environment.
Welcome to AI Coffee Table Conversations. Today, we are unpacking a highly detailed executive briefing that covers three massive structural shifts: real-world sovereign risk, the birth of the synthetic employee, and a hidden energy crisis that's about to slam into your boardroom.
Yeah, the era of treating AI as just a fun, consequence-free experiment is over. This changes things. IT departments are now staring down massive infrastructure demands and unprecedented geopolitical interference.
Right. So let's jump straight into our first story, which has to be the most explosive event in the memo:
Hmm.
the Anthropic situation. Because honestly, the forced recall of their Claude Fable 5 model reads less like a tech update and more like a geopolitical thriller.
Oh, absolutely. It's a complete watershed moment for the global software supply chain. I mean, on June 9th, Anthropic launches Fable 5, right? They position it as this heavily safeguarded enterprise-grade model.
And they charged a massive premium for it too, like double the cost of Opus 4.8.
Exactly. And enterprises just ate it up. They immediately started integrating it into automated pipelines and complex reasoning apps. But then, just 3 days later, on June 12th, the U.S. Department of Commerce issues an emergency export control directive.
Wow, just 3 days.
Yeah. Someone found a relatively simple jailbreak bypass that could theoretically unlock the underlying offensive cyber capabilities of the architecture.
Wait, if it was just a jailbreak, why couldn't Anthropic just patch the vulnerability or, block the bad actors? Why did the government have to step in with an emergency mandate?
Because of the nature of the API ecosystem, Anthropic can't surgically verify the nationality or the true intent of every single API caller in real time. A request from a server in Frankfurt might be a legitimate corporate client, or it might be a state-sponsored proxy.
Ah, I see. So they couldn't guarantee granular compliance,
Right, they had to use a sledgehammer. So they pulled Fable 5 globally.
meaning they instantly reverted all commercial traffic back
Whoa.
to the less capable Opus 4.8 model.
Instantly, mid-flight. If your enterprise application was in the middle of processing a massive data set relying on Fable 5's specific logic, that app was suddenly downgraded to a dumber model without your IT department's consent.
Which is just wild to me. It's like you leased a Formula One car for your business, and while you're literally driving down the highway at 200 miles an hour, the government repossesses the engine and swaps in a lawnmower motor.
That's a great visual because it perfectly captures the disruption. We're witnessing the introduction of sovereign risk directly into the live software supply chain. Historically, export controls hit physical hardware at a port.
Right, like semiconductor chips,
Yes.
not live SaaS APIs. The golden rule of the cloud has always been, you buy the SaaS that stays there. We build entire architectures around SLAs that guarantee uptime.
But an SLA guaranteeing server uptime is totally useless if the underlying intelligence running on those servers is degraded by regulatory fiat. Your server is technically online, but its cognitive engine just got a state-mandated lobotomy.
So if you're an IT leader listening to this, and your automated coding pipeline is hard-coded to route specifically to that Fable 5 endpoint, your application just breaks.
It breaks, or it silently fails and starts hallucinating wildly. You've basically built a single point of failure controlled by geopolitics.
Oh, so what does this mean for IT leadership decisions right now? How do you defend against a government unplugging your engine?
You have to architect for graceful degradation. You build API abstraction layers. Instead of your app talking directly to Anthropic, it talks to your internal middleware gateway. Think of it like a massive train yard switchboard.
Oh, I like that. So if the main rail line gets blown up,
Your switchboard detects the drop, translates the prompt, and seamlessly fails over to a secondary model or a local open-weight alternative. The end user never even knows the underlying engine was swapped. You treat the models as interchangeable utilities.
which is a perfect pivot to our second story. Because treating these models as simple, interchangeable utilities gets really complicated when the models themselves become autonomous agents.
Yeah, the architecture is shifting from digital assistants to a synthetic workforce, and that totally changes the risk profile.
Right, so let's talk about OpenAI's recent acquisition of Ona. They're a German cloud infrastructure startup that builds secure, persistent cloud sandboxes. This moves us from synchronous generative AI to asynchronous agentic AI.
Exactly. We're moving away from tools like GitHub Copilot, just auto-completing your code while you type. With onus persistent sandboxes, the AI evolves into a stateful execution environment.
Meaning you can give this synthetic agent a high-level objective on Friday, and it writes code, spins up test environments, and debugs errors all weekend while your human developer's laptop is closed. It's incredible capability, but
Okay, wait, I have to push back here. As a security architect, my alarm bells are deafening right now. If we have AI agents running around our enterprise cloud accessing databases at all hours, aren't we basically handing the keys to production to a synthetic employee? How do you even audit that?
well, you can't. Not with traditional methods. Traditional IAM, identity and access management is built for humans. Humans sleep. If a human makes 10,000 database queries at 3 a.m. from 12 IP addresses, your SOC team shuts them down.
Immediately, they'd be fired.
Right. But for an agentic AI, that's just a standard testing loop. So IT departments are being forced to implement non-human identity governance, entirely new synthetic IAM frameworks.
How does that actually work mechanically?
You use dynamic credentialing, you give the agent a short-lived JSON web token bound to a highly specific task, you set brutal rate limits, and crucially, you build mandatory human-in-the-loop approval gates.
So the agent can draft a massive database schema change all weekend, but it physically cannot execute until a human administrator clicks approve. Exactly. But while we're redesigning security, we also have to redesign our budgets. The era of VC-subsidized AI tokens is violently ending. OpenAI is confidentially filing for an IPO. Bezos is raising billions for his artificial general engineer startup.
Yeah, the capital markets are demanding profitability, meaning inference costs are about to skyrocket.
IT leaders need to stress test their budgets for 50 to 100% inference cost increases over the next 2 years. And watch out for vendor lock-in. OpenAI wants to own that entire stateful execution environment.
Right, if your workflows are built inside their sandbox, migrating that synthetic workforce later is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Which actually brings us to our third story, and it's a frustrating one. The boardroom collision.
Oh, this is the reality check.
Because we're talking about paying premium rates for autonomous agents and overhauling our entire security stack.
Yeah.
But when you look at how businesses are actually using AI, the math doesn't work. The hype is colliding with stalled operational reality.
Look at the new AWS data from the UK, which is a great global bellwether. 76% of organizations have adopted AI, but only 24% are at an advanced stage. That's only a 1% increase from last year.
A 1% increase is a catastrophic failure of digital transformation. Companies are buying the tech way faster than their workforce can absorb it.
Because there's a massive skills shortage. So you have people using incredibly expensive foundational models to do basic administrative novelties.
Like using a $50 per million token model to summarize generic emails. It's like using a carbon-heavy supercomputer to open a jar of pickles. And that carbon aspect is the real crisis here.
Yes, the hidden energy bill. This is the most underreported risk right now. Look at Meta partnering to build a 168 megawatt AI data center in India. The energy consumption is staggering.
And historically, enterprises didn't care. An employee makes an API call, they get a text summary, and IT is blissfully ignorant of the carbon generated by the hyperscaler.
But that ignorance isn't legally permissible anymore. With the EU's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive and tightening SEC guidelines, organizations have to rigorously report Scope 3 supply chain emissions.
Meaning, an API call to a third-party AI vendor is now officially part of your supply chain carbon footprint.
Exactly. It's not just a financial line item anymore. It's a primary driver of corporate carbon bloat. So imagine being a CFO with legally binding emission reduction targets.
Your Scope 3 emissions suddenly spike by 20% because employees are casually generating emails with AI and your ROI is totally flat. The board is going to defund that entire AI initiative overnight.
Which is why IT leaders have to pivot right now. You have to abandon the broad access deployment model. Buying generic AI licenses for everyone is a proven failure. You need targeted integration.
So you only deploy these carbon-heavy models for high-value core operations, like complex code refactoring, where the math actually justifies the energy expenditure.
Right. And you have to implement energy FinOps. It's no longer just optimizing cloud architecture for cost. You have to optimize for carbon intensity.
The memo mentioned geographic workload shifting for this. I thought that was brilliant.
It really is. Since agentic AI is asynchronous, it doesn't need ultra-low latency. It's running batch processes all weekend. So you use DNS routing to dynamically shift those heavy workloads to global data centers during times when those regions have a surplus of renewable energy.
Wow. So if it's noon in a region with heavy solar power, you route the compute there. You trade network latency for a massive reduction in Scope 3 emissions.
Exactly. You use the asynchronous nature of the agents to solve the energy crisis they're creating.
That is incredibly smart. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground today, and we always promise one thing IT leaders should do this week. So what's the actionable recommendation?
Audit your hard-coded API dependencies today. Find exactly where your enterprise applications will break if a vendor's frontier model gets ripped offline by a sovereign mandate, and start scoping that middleware failover layer immediately.
The arcade is closed. You can no longer just be a tech facilitator, you have to be a strict orchestrator of value and risk. That is all the time we have for today's AI Coffee Table Conversations. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.